Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Civil Rhetoric Podcast. My apologies for not uploading recently. My wife recently had her second child, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, and life has been lifing, just to kind of say the least. Operating right now on about an hour and a half of sleep, which is about an hour and a half more than I got the day before. So I'm doing that. Today, I'm lucky enough to invite to the stage a person that everyone I'm sure is already familiar with. This content creator is not only somebody who actively believes in the U.S. Constitution, he goes out and he actually practices it. And he practices it to make sure that the public servants and employees that work for us and take our tax dollars are actually being upheld into the rights that we deserve here. Today, I'm going to introduce the Flash Audits. He's an amazing auditor. Like, share, and subscribe to his videos. In the link in the description of this video, I have a link to his content. You definitely want to check it out. If you care about your rights, if you care about the U.S. Constitution, this is a person who will definitely be a real easy introduction into learning your rights and how you can actively stand up for yourself. So, without further ado, everybody, I'd like to introduce the Flash Audits. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, and thanks for the wonderful introduction.
No problem at all. Like I mentioned before to you when we were talking before we got started, I'm just super thankful that you're taking the time to actually have this interview with me. This is the very first time that I've got an opportunity to speak with an actual auditor. I have a lot of friends and family who are in law enforcement, so I get to hear it from that side of things. But having the opportunity to speak with you, someone who I not only respect, someone who I not only already consume the content of, it's just somebody that I know is going to be a really good transition piece for people who are just looking to learn and be more familiar with their rights in this country, because most people don't know, the First Amendment, let alone the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, those amendments, in terms of utilizing them, uh, from an audit standpoint, you got people who know that First Amendment auditors, they're engaged in their free press. Then you got some people, just like a lawyer, you got a lawyer that deals with marital law, marriage, right? Then you got one lawyer who's dealing with criminal or civil. Same thing with auditors. You got some auditors that are dealing with their Second Amendment, in terms of open carry arms and stuff, and so when it comes to these terms of auditing or auditors, there's different type of auditors, and honestly, not every auditor is going to probably know every amendment. It's kind of like a craft, like a lawyer. A lawyer would say, "Hey, look, I'm a lawyer, but that's not my area of practice."
Definitely. And I've noticed that there are some specialties, like especially when you have auditors who, lean more on that Second Amendment, like the armed fisherman, and then someone like yourself is more leaning on that First and Fourth Amendment, who's going out there and like into these public entities. And I think that's a really good transition. The one thing I've always been curious about when I first got introduced to your channel, from the Tyrant Terminator audits, was the name The Flash. Like, I'm a nerd. So when I saw The Flash, I was like, immediately, Barry Burton, Flash, let's go. What was it that made you come up with that name, the Flash Audits, for your channel?
So before I started auditing, I was a fan, right? Like most people, we're watching the videos, right? No, I wasn't. I was with the security, armed security, so I knew something about some law, and I was always interested in law, studying different law and fundamentals of law. So when I decided that I was going to
See,
audit,
that does
I
make
called
sense. I
James.
know
Go ahead.
I've actually, I think your voice, now that I'm hearing it a little bit more often, were you, like when TTA, this is when I could listen to his lives on Sunday when he would have the call in. You were calling in from time to time, right, on his lives?
Yeah, I would call in. I would critique his videos from a legal analysis on where the public official erred or how he could attack their approach in terms of legal stance.
That's interesting because, like, it's funny. I don't know why it was, but it just kind of clicked in my brain right now. I
Yeah,
haven't had a chance to catch his Sunday shows because now I play baseball on Sundays. But in
mm,
most cases, yeah, I do remember you now. Like at least the sound of your voice there. So that's actually
yeah.
just like a weird connection to make right there.
And you remember good
Um,
because I would call and we like I would call all the time and somehow I always got through. And he'd be like, "Man, yeah, man, hey, man, we gonna have to link up, And we would. He shared the number with me, and he texted me his private number during one of those calls, and so I had his private number. From that time, I've spoken to his lawyers and everything. He's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, like he really seems like a decent person. Like I've called once or twice, and I got through both times, and had the opportunity to talk with him as well. So I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool. So I mean, and I could tell just from like the conversations we've had thus far, you guys are very similar in terms of like your approach to life in general. Um, I know that you mentioned TTA and a couple other auditors before we got started. Who were some of the auditors? I guess what was your first audit? Like, who was the person you checked out the first time, and how'd you come across that?
Well, let's pause real quick because we got viewers watching this, and they might be like, "Oh, he skipped the other part of that question." The other part of the previous question was, "How did I get the name?" Right? Remember? So the
Correct.
name Flash. So I'm sitting inside the house one day thinking about 5 different names. I got 5 different names I came up with. I text TTA. I say, "Man, these are the names I got. What you think?" And he said, "Man, them sound good, but how about the Flash?" And so he actually came up with the name for me. Uh, he called it TFA, and which was the Flash Audits, and then put that with the acronym, so it helped both of us out. And so some people be like, "Man, you're copying," but they don't even realize TFA he came up with.
It's like it's hard to copy somebody when they literally gave it to you, you know?
Right.
So,
He literally told me that this is a good name and put a character with it, and then we put the Flash character with it, and that's how it became the Flash Audits, which is an acronym, which is first law always supersedes hypotheticals.
oh, that is hot. I'm gonna make sure to post that, to click that right there, and
Right.
actually make sure
And
to
the
look it up.
first law
That's
is the First Amendment, by the way. No, the right to record, right to press. No, because most public officials and officers they tend to use hypotheticals to try to suppress your activities, and so that's why it's first law always supersedes hypotheticals. It's not against the law for me to record your personal information. It's against the law if I use it in an illicit manner, in a legal way.
agreed. And I know I've heard TTA, and I've actually heard you mention that before in your videos, where they'll say like, "Well, we don't want you recording any public information. Don't record the people." And it's like, well, that's not where the law is being broken. The law is being broken
Right.
when I use it, maliciously. So
Right.
anything outside of that is just background noise, so to speak. And I do
Right.
appreciate that. So now with that first question answered, when it came to your very first audit and how you came across it, how did that come about?
It's the one that's unlisted. If you guys remember, there was a school administration building I went to. Right, it's unlisted right now due to it's point in time where the petition is being filed. Wrapping it up. Anyway, so I go in there. I'm having troubles with my daughters. 7 and 9. They're having these issues in this district, and they have a policy at this district that says 3 offenses per year, not per day, not per month, per year. And so after these 3 offenses, they can write you up on a referral anytime. So I had a question about this because it doesn't say what type of offenses, learning offenses, hardcore violations like stealing offenses. What type of offenses are we talking about here? And you can max out your offenses in a matter of one day. Sit down, put your feet down, no talking, boom. Now your 3 offenses for the whole year is done. And so my daughters are like the only one of two, I guess, blacks at that school in this South Texas area. So there's a bit of implicit bias. When I say implicit, because that's the type of bias you're kind of born with through how you're raised, from the culture that you're raised around. And so they were getting these referrals for stuff that you shouldn't get referrals for. Learning referrals, like she was talking. Okay, she was 6 years old at the time. She's 7 now. Yeah, they're gonna talk. They're young. You
Yeah,
shouldn't give a
that's what kids
referral
do.
for talking, huh?
I was like, that's what kids do, you know?
Right. You shouldn't give him a referral for talking. So this went on uh, like 2, 3 times, right? And then after that, a little boy pushed my daughter down, and she hit her head, bust her head open. She had to go to the emergency room. And so I went back to the school and I'm like, hey, I need that child's parents' information. I'm gonna hold them accountable so they can cover the damages, the costs associated with this injury. And when I said that, reprisal the door of reprisal opened up basically. From that point on, it's like an influx of disciplinary action, referrals. It upticked, right? And now I'm like, man, hold on, this doesn't look right. I got to go to the administration building, talk to the superintendent, somebody. So I go over there the first visit, which is not on recording. The first visit ever, I expressed my grievances I'm having with the actual school. They're listening. Mr. What is his name? Juan Heredia. He's pretending to listen, but I'm looking at his body language. I can tell he's being dismissive. And so I'm still looking for the positivity in that approach, even though he's being dismissive. So after about 30 minutes of that conference, we wrapped it up. And I thought we had made some type of meeting of the minds. No. Apparently it didn't happen. Apparently whatever he did made it worse. And so now I say, you know what, I'm going to go back up here, and this time I'm going to record my encounter with these public officials because really they're covering up for themselves. And that was the first video where actually me and the wife, we actually go to, if you was at the channel at the beginning of the time, it was public at first, it's not now. But yeah, we go to the building and they're trying to stop me from recording everywhere in the vestibule, outside, inside, everywhere. They called the school resource officer. The first time he didn't try to remove me. The second time they really didn't try to remove me. They were trying to tell me to go outside, but then they were still saying I couldn't record, so it didn't make sense. Called for a sergeant. And long story short, that was the first thing that caused me to be audited. It was what happened at the school. It transitioned to the administration building, and if that's what was the lane that created me, the actual said, okay, I'm getting out there now. I'm tired of these public officials. That's really how it happened.
Oddly enough, the Flash fits perfectly there, in your own right. You kind of went from being just a normal, average, everyday citizen. And then when the issue came to your doorstep and you saw the way that you were treated, you had to
Yeah,
go ahead and actively advocate for not only your own rights, but for the rights of your daughter. So, I
right.
mean, I commend that, brother. Like the fact that you not only went through it for yourself and you're still going through it, but at the same time, now you're going out there and doing this for other people indirectly, even if people don't notice it and they don't realize it. What you're actually doing is you're standing up for them as well because their rights are also included, in the First Amendment. So I mean, hats off to you. That's man, I thought it was gonna come from more along the lines of, I really like DC, and I just thought, why not be the Flash? But the fact that
Oh
you had
nah.
TTA be the one that bestowed the name on you, plus you had like a direct involvement in it, man,
Right.
that honestly makes a ton of sense. And I
Right.
would ask you what motivated you to start auditing, but I mean that right there sounds like putting gasoline on fire. Like that in itself
Well, yeah,
would
now,
actually even do it.
but no, you still got some valid portion to ask that. Honestly, about what motivated me, because like I say, I was watching all the auditors. A lot. Some of them people probably don't watch, but I was definitely watching some of the prime auditors, like Long Island. I was definitely watching TTA, KCA. I was watching Amigasket Press. I was definitely watching Bay Area. So I was watching a bunch of auditors, and watching them, I believe, motivates you to be an auditor, even if you don't take steps to be an auditor. Because from my perspective, there's no such thing as you're not an auditor. Once you start watching those videos, you start to critique. So you start to audit it as you're watching and as you're learning. So you're still an auditor. You're more or less you know idle auditing, versus to being out there, but you're still auditing. So in terms of how it motivated me, honestly, TTA motivated me when he was allowing me to talk, when he would allow me to access him. No, I can call you, I can talk to you. You're giving me attention back to me. Oh wow, so I'm important to you. That aspect right there created the true will to, you know what? Okay, so when the personal situation happened with that actual attention that he gave me, it was just, and it morphed me into a Power Ranger now. Now I'm a Power Ranger for the Constitution.
That's for sure. Like that's actually a good way to put that too.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you would consider like a defining moment for you, even outside of the situation with your daughter and the conversations you had with TTA? Was there anything that made you just say, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Let me get a camera. Let me get out there and let me jump directly into this.
Yeah, I had got pulled over, and it was when I got out of the military. You know, I got out on November 9th, 2023. So I'm driving in Texas, and I'm in the Mercedes G wagon, and I get pulled over, and the officer was tense just to answer any of my questions, and I feel like, well, I used to think this, but now I don't think this, but I used to think that they get away with that behavior because their supervisors don't know that they have that behavior. Now I've learned that their supervisors are well aware of that behavior and conduct, and they actually support it behind closed doors. And then when they get out here in front of the cameras and stuff, reporters, and they got to answer to certain people, they play like they don't know what's going on. But that's really what it was. You know, when you get you will feel like a strong energy of a thick atmosphere when you're dealing with trying to question police officers. And if the question itself sounds any type of questioning their authority, or if you even sound like you have any legal wherewithal, they dismiss your questions. And sometimes they'd be like, "Are you a lawyer?" And I'm like, "Okay, do I have to be a lawyer to ask you questions? Do you got to be a lawyer to write me a ticket or to arrest me? Because neither one of us is lawyers, right? But you're asserting pains and penalties under law, and I'm questioning the context of law. So either way it go, we're doing the same thing. So neither one of us is a lawyer, but no, when I ran into the situation where officers are getting like agitated, I just feel like people needed to see the behavior and the conduct of how easily a simple, cordial conversation can make a officer become agitated.
And oddly enough, that's something that's very visible in the First Amendment auditing videos, especially your own, because I've noticed even when officers do end up eventually kind of course correcting and doing well
Mm-hmm.
through an audit with you, you'll notice when they first talk to you and you give them some pushback, it's almost like a how dare you kind of feeling they have about themselves. And then when you kind of lay down the law of like, this is what I understand, this is what I know, they then kind of course correct and go, you know what, maybe this isn't the person we should try to push our ideals on or try to infringe upon their rights because this is not going to end well for us. And I find it funny because you're holding a camera while they're doing it as if that camera does not exist. So, and I imagine how they would act if you weren't holding that camera and you were pushing back against them, giving you like these illegal and lawful directives.
Yeah, and in the camera, I would say this: the camera helps, but really, what you say helps more because they're not these public officials and public servants. They don't give a I don't know. They don't give a damn about that camera. They're going to behave the way they're going to behave, and you would think that if you're on camera, your best behavior would be present, right? Instead of you saying you're just recording me to antagonize me to get the worst behavior out of me, why in the heck would a camera draw the worst behavior? The camera should draw out the best behavior if you think about it in context, you know. But yeah, in terms of the camera helping, it helps. But I think what you say help also. Like somebody told me, Flash, I think it was BZ Watchdog. He said, "How the heck did you do 5 visits? You haven't been arrested and haven't been cited." And it's really what you say, in your demeanor, and it matters. It shouldn't matter, but it matters how you look also. To know, there's like a internal programming to where if you look like you know what you're talking about, it kind of backs them up.
Yeah, that I would agree. I believe it's audit them. I know that when he goes into his audits, he's get really suited and booted. Like he's got a tie on, he's got slacks, he's got a shirt, and I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed that the approach that he gets versus somebody, the gentleman from New York, geez, good guy audits. I noticed, like, I mean, he's constantly getting arrested and like hemmed
Right.
up and stuff. So, and I do think that that has a lot to do with it, especially with terms of how you interact with them in terms of your speech and how
Mm-hmm.
you carry yourself. The one thing I don't want to gloss over is the fact that you served in the military. So I want to say thank you so much for your service. How long did you serve?
About 8 years.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice. Like
8 years active duty. I didn't do no reserve time. It was all active duty.
nice. It's funny. When we were before we jumped on this, I mentioned that I play baseball on Sundays, and the team I'm on is called the Soldiers, because the majority of the people that are on that team are all ex-military, whether it be Navy, Marines, actually quite a few Marines, as
Mm.
well as airmen as well. So like it does kind of line up, and I notice that those are people who are a little bit stronger when it comes to the rights of this country because they've actually faced firefights and things like that. Like there's a little bit more of an importance to them to actually make sure those rights are upheld.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who audit that are former military, and some of them even went to the police academy, like BZ Watchdog. He's former Marines, and he went to the police academy.
See, I didn't know that. Like I could tell by the way that he speaks, that he had some type of law enforcement affiliation, because that is a guy who speaks with like the utmost confidence, especially when he's even talking to like people like with the whole thing that happened with KCA and Newkirk. When he
Hmm.
was out there talking to these people about this, like he presents himself in such a very stern manner, but at the same time, it's very open and fair. So that does make a lot of sense there.
Right.
When it comes to you and the First Amendment auditing and things like that and dealing with trolls, one thing I've seen a lot of are these things where people call it frauding. Because if you watch auditing, you're going to get frauditors and people calling auditors frauditors across your algorithm and your timeline. What's your understanding of of people that call auditors frauditors, and just kind of what's your impression of it?
Okay, that's a compact question. I'm gonna break it down from my
For
understanding.
sure.
Uh, no fraud. No, from the way it's being used on YouTube, it's really you can only use that if a auditor fails at their purpose. If they don't fail at their purpose, you can never make a frauditor video, right? So, in order to
Good point.
assist someone to create the narrative that here's another frauditor, they would need a few elements. They would need the public official to alienate your rights, and they would need the extension of force, which is the law enforcement, to also alienate your rights. And then when you have those two things combined, you get a trespass or you get an arrest. So the whole concept of frauditor, in comical terms, is the aspect that these disingenuine people with cameras are creating a nuisance, and they finally got served with the correct pains and penalties that they deserve. That's the whole nuances from an internet standpoint. But for me, in terms of how do I see it, I see it as whoever used that term. Now let me back. That term might actually apply to some people who pretend to be auditors. I'll be honest. It might actually apply to some people, but in terms of the collective, I think when that term is drawing up, you know, where's the content creators for the frauditor officers? Like how would you put that together? Like officer frauder, like combine of officers and frauders and come up with a terminology for the same when they're violating people's rights, right? So don't just isolate the moment where an auditor fails, because most of the time when the auditor fails at auditing, it's not because they're in violation of the law. It's because the law enforcement, the Leo, doesn't know the law. So he or she is coming to enforce comfort for an establishment or for an entity, is not coming to enforce law.
That's actually a good way to put it, because I've noticed a lot of times they'll put that term on anybody, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
the type of content that they create, if they're dealing with law enforcement or with public officials, and they're ignoring the fact that in most of these cases, the person has an actual right to be there. They have a right to record. So to call someone a frauditor in that respect is actually kind of fraudulent on
Right,
theirs on them, trying to put that kind of stigma on them. So I completely agree with that.
right. And most of the time there'll be no nuisance. There's no idea of. So it's an unfair logic to say that someone who's engaging in a protected activity is a nuisance or is agitating, because I feel like when you walk in these public places and you see those cameras on the walls, and you don't say that they're agitating you. You don't say that they're trying to draw out your worst behavior. You don't say that they're trying to create a lawsuit. And most auditors that I know of, at least, they don't have the camera in your face. There's just loose terminology that people are using. Well, he went over there with the camera all in his face. No, he didn't. He went to the entity with the camera in his hand or with the camera on his body. He's not in no one's face.
I've always found it interesting because this happens a lot when people are doing the audits, like on the sidewalk, where they'll say, "Oh, well, what about the cameras that are pointing at us from like a bank or even like at a post office?" "Oh, well, that's just for security," or "No, that's because that's the government taking care of it." And in most instances, if you talk to somebody, they don't have 100% faith in the government. However, they do have faith that they're going to take this information that they're capturing on video and use it for non-nefarious purposes, which I find hilarious because a person that's recording you, you can see and interact with, and then you can actually formulate an opinion versus this blind, faceless entity that's just recording you in every step that you take. So I've always kind of scratched my head when people say that and do that, and it just has never kind of registered to me. But with the way that you put that, it makes perfect sense. It's just a lot of people seem to be upset, a lot of people seem to be agitated, and because you're holding the camera, you're the person that they can take it out on, unfortunately.
Right. And it's disgusting to me because, like, let's look at this. Let's analyze this from a true perspective. When the government records you, it's to hold you accountable, enforce pain and penalties. When some regular member of the public records you, they're not trying to fine you or nothing. So why are you? No, when the government is recording you, they're trying to hold you accountable in a way that you may not even be aware of. Like even us, we got to be careful because if somebody walks in the bathroom and the door opens, here you go, you get a citation from the district attorney. They done indicted you for something you weren't even aware of.
See that, and the idea that, when it is a government entity, like you mentioned, it kind of encapsulates it perfectly. It's 100% to hold you accountable to something, whether you're aware of it or not. The
Right.
only unfortunate side effect is that if the government commits those same actions against you, they actually can say, "Well, I didn't know I couldn't do that." But if we do that, we still get time for it. But
Right.
yeah, I'm hoping that that changes over the course of having active auditors like yourself and TTA, kind of correcting it and putting it back to where the power is in our hands versus these faceless entities, which are being ran by corporations, unfortunately.
They get to error in the most disgusting way and say that they was operating in good faith. And then when a member of the public say, "Hey man, I might have made a mistake. I ran that red light, but in good faith, I didn't mean to." They're not trying to hear that.
Not at all. They like take this ticket and they might even say, "Let me take your car and pound it," and you got to go pay additional fees on top of fees. And I mean, heck, 78% of Americans right now already living paycheck to paycheck. So
Right.
something like that is going to be the decision of, oh, can I go buy food this week? Or do I need to get my car out of impound so that I can then go to work to then buy food, hopefully in a couple weeks? Or now they're
Yep.
putting it on credit cards and so on and so forth. It's just like this unfortunate spiral that we're kind of caught in right now.
Yep. Let me sign up for flex payments on my rent this week.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like even there was something I was ordering online, and it was like $7, and I was like just doing it through PayPal. And I was like, "Hey, do you want to stretch this out over 3 payments?" I'm like, "Nah, man, $7. It's okay."
Yeah.
Yeah, man, they try to get you, and it's like constant. The funny thing is we've already mentioned like a couple of different auditors, and like I've mentioned before previously, I'm a huge fan of just audits in general. I watch just about everybody, especially because at the house, whenever I'm not working, I'm working on something. So if I'm either gluing up some wood or I'm cutting some wood or I'm making something for my family, I have an audit on in the background, like whether it be you, TTA, Bay Area, I am free, Kansas City accountability. I'm trying to just like make sure I don't forget anybody. KULT News, who I actually love, who's about to finally go ahead and jump the broom and get married there. So shout out to him. Long Island Audit, auditing Erie County, love his videos.
Oh, I didn't
Just to
even.
mention a few, if I'm forgetting anybody, San Joaquin Valley Transparency. If I'm forgetting anybody, please excuse me.
Surreal
Who are some of
Kingdom.
the auditors that you take cues from?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. You said there's a lot, so it's easy to forget. What was your question?
I'm saying, who are some of the auditors that you take cues from? Like you maybe even kind of like mirror your style on them. as well as that even just watching for your own personal entertainment?
So to be straight honest, originally when I first started after the school incident, no, I wanted to do the banks because I thought the banks from the sidewalk, I thought that was pretty interesting in terms of you're on the sidewalk. Most banks are like so many feet from the sidewalk. But every now and then you get that one bank that's right there on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right. But and I wanted to do the banks because of the way KCA he did it, and he did it so well to where it's his style now to where I don't even feel comfortable doing the banks because I've done some of them, but some of the things I would want to say that would draw alarm in terms of questioning them, that's his style. So initially, I want to say my first bank audit, I used one of his lines. That didn't go too well. The internet is undefeated. They're going to crucify you. And I was just trying to have fun in terms of I was practicing because here's the deal. Let me break this down. Here's the deal. When you first start auditing, right? The sidewalk audits is like prepping you to go into these government entities because in like fashion, the government entities is like the hood. It's like the ghetto in terms of the public officials. These are the most authority dominant, corrupt power players that you need from a public assisting position. And when you go in there and they're so used to enforcing authority over you and giving you directives, I mean, even the basic, as soon as you walk in, you try to get a service, they're so used to, oh, sit down. And the way they say it, it's like, damn, all right, I'm sitting down. So, but the bank stuff I tried, and I kind of picked that a little portion of it from KCA. I realized I gotta get my own style, man. I gotta do my own thing. I need an intro for me. I didn't have an intro at first, so I made my own intro. That was all on me. No one helped me with the intro. No, in terms of putting it together and the way I drew up the concept. So made the intro. I said, okay, I need something to say, like an introduction and an outro. So I came up with my introduction and outro, and I did the libraries. I said, I'm gonna do the libraries. I can't do the banks because what I need to say, I can't say because KCA, he pretty much has capitalized that to fit his character. Right, so I started doing the libraries, and the whole purpose of this was to prepare me for the ghetto. The WIC off. When I say the ghetto, I'm not talking about the members of the public who uses the benefits. I'm talking about the public officials. That's the ghetto. When you go to the human health department, park districts, and you deal with the municipalities, the police department, any place where these public officials sit down and do nothing at, you get the most pushback. So
Yeah.
I can't say I crafted any style, but I will say this in terms of trying not to laugh as much. And I say it like that because you will find in my videos where I kind of laugh. But it's not laughing because it's funny. It's laughing because I'm disgusted. So I'm trying to use the laughter to mask my frustration most of the time in any video where you hear me laugh. And what I will say is, Long Island, he don't laugh much in his videos. In his videos, when he's facing a rights violation, you're not going to see him laughing like my man out of everything. He'd get violated and he'd be laughing. I'd be like, nah, man, this a serious matter here. And how you want them to take you serious? This is no shot to his character, by the way, because he will see this eventually. But I'm still giving my perspective. My observation doesn't mean it's not the truth of what I'm seeing, but it doesn't mean it's what he's trying to do neither, right? It's just my observation. So I see Long Island and Bay Area. Neither one of those guys do too much laughing unless they're making a mockery of you. And TTA, same thing with TTA. And so those three gentlemen, I realized, I said, hold on, they're not laughing about much. No, this is serious business, which I already knew it was. But how are you going to be inside the most toughest atmosphere? When you start trying to go to the district attorney's office, the probation office, some of these other government entities, and you think you finna laugh your way into them respecting your rights, nah, you got to come in there, swords drawn, Constitution in your hand like the Bible, ready to go to war.
That's actually a good way to put it, and actually leads me to a question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but you mentioned two auditors who I really enjoy. You mentioned Long Island Audit, and you mentioned Bay Area Transparency. Shout out to BAT, by the way. When it comes to their styles, they're similar because, like, they're both very serious in their approach, but they're also quite different in terms of the way they interact and deal with. Like the Bay Area is more West Coast confrontational, and Long Island is more like New York, kind of waspy with it in terms of, oh, I'm gonna basically attack you mentally. When Bay Area Transparency is just like he's more free flowing with it. Out of the two, in regards to their style, and like this, if you can answer it, go for it. If you can't, I get it. Who would you say your favorite is in terms of their approach and how they handle things out of the two, out of BAT and LIA?
Okay, give me a minute to think about this because this is tough because okay, so I'm gonna have to choose Long Island because I love Bay Area transparency, but the difference is Long Island is gonna follow up, and I like that. And one time I thought to myself, no, I did some research. I seen he filed some stuff pro se before. And I could be wrong, Long Island. So if I'm wrong, don't trip. I'm just giving my synopsis, my observation. And it really doesn't make you look bad. It really is. It's a neutral point that I'm about to make. I didn't say. I'm gonna put it like this. I'm gonna say it like this. I seen when he filed a few petitions pro se, right? It might have been one or two. I think the purpose of that petition was just to show that entity, hey, I will file a lawsuit, even if it get dismissed. I will file it. And I told TTA this on the phone. There's two ways to win. Three ways. Insurance. Okay, that's one way. What's four ways? The first way is for them to respect their rights. That's the first way. That's the most easiest, simplest way to win. Just respect the rights. Second way, okay, insurance company. The third way, okay, I'm going to file a lawsuit. Okay, the fourth way is I'm going to file a lawsuit to win. The fourth way is I'm going to file the lawsuit. It's a loss, but it's a win. I'm gonna tell you why. Let's say I filed a lawsuit, and I think this happened to Long Island one time. He's never said this, but I'm just making my uneducated speculation because it's unfair for me to have this type of speculation. There was a lawsuit he filed in federal court that got dismissed. That was pro se, and I think the purpose of it was to show the entity that I will file it on you. And that is also a win because they get thousands or millions of people per year who say they will and don't do it. So if you take a situation where Long Island has had his rights violated, it don't cost no money for him just because he got violated, unless you get arrested, of course. But even if you get arrested, what? You sit it out for 8 hours, or you pay and bond out, so $400 or $500. You go file a federal lawsuit, you drop $300-400 to pay the fee, and then the serving fees and all that, and then you make them spend $20,000 just to get it dismissed, even if you never file another motion other than your petition. They still had to spend like $20,000 just to get that lawsuit dismissed. So you've actually created attention at the highest level of that entity, even if you had no genuine effort to follow through with the lawsuit. So you still create a little bit of change because that entity, they're going to be a little bit slower to try to alienate your rights next time they see you because they know that you will file a lawsuit.
See that's that 4D chess move right there. That's not something I ever would have even remotely considered. That in itself, yeah, to know that you're putting it out there that if you do violate my rights, whether or not I pursue it past this, initial lawsuit,
Mhm.
you are going to have to come out of pocket just to get me to go away.
Right.
And I think that in itself, yeah, that's actually quite powerful. And I never would have seen that. I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I think the listeners out there are going to find some appreciation in that as well, because that in itself is just That's 4D chess. It's chess, not checkers, as a famous man once said.
Right, right. But like I say, no love lost to Bay Area. No, what I do like about Bay Area is you can't make him think he's wrong. Like I've seen Sean like kind of question something new that he heard. He's like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna go check it out. But with Bay Area, you can't make him think he's wrong. Which is I'm not saying that's good either because sometimes it's good to stand down. If you run into a new law or a new statement that you never heard, you might need to stand down because it might be valid. But I'm just saying what I do like about Bay Area is he goes like all in like a torpedo on what he believes the law is. So there's not going to be much convincing him at all. You're just going to have to deal with his energy and his method of approach and hope that whoever you call can make him leave. And usually it don't go that way. And he's going to do a revisit also. But as far as which one do I find better, I will have to give it to Long Island for that reason. Like I said, I believe that he's very methodical. And another thing is this: when you have a lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen, right? Or you think you have one, it's so hard to find an attorney to represent you. It's not easy. People say you got all the elements, go file a lawsuit. Even if you call the legal aid, sometimes they don't want to help you. So another good pointer when drafting your own petition, sometimes if you draft it and you file it and then take it to an attorney, they'll represent you. They charge you, but they'll represent you.
Man, I'm telling you that is again another piece of 4D chess. And I think for anyone that's considering becoming an auditor or someone who is an auditor that's like brand new to this, I think those are some gems that are going to help them build up over their auditing career. And the one thing you mentioned about BAT, about Bay Area transparency being as a torpedo, I 100% agree. Like he is a person that like he is 10 toes down with
Mm-hmm.
everything that he does. And I've noticed lately over his last couple of videos that he's kind of incorporated a little bit more of that Long Island audit style of being willing to listen and kind of be a little bit more pliable with how he approaches things. But he's still 10 toes down. And I think that's just like a West Coast thing. That's why when I see him, it's like I can just relate to that very much so. And one thing I don't want to do, I was like, I'm just putting you on the spot like one after another. And I know this might be hard for you to answer, but outside of yourself, of course, who would you say right now is your favorite auditor? And like, if you had to do it, pick one, and if not, a Mount Rushmore of who you think would be your favorite auditors.
Okay, and I'm gonna answer that according to why they're my favorite auditors.
For sure.
My favorite auditor number one would be TTA, but the reason why is because he did what most people don't do who reach internet famous status. He gave me his number, you know, and it doesn't cost nothing to entertain one of your fans for 5 or 10 minutes on the phone. That's the that's better than calling out their name, and that'll make a fan stick with you even when you're wrong, you know.
Yeah.
So for that reason, for the simple fact that he didn't see himself to be so busy or so far gone into his craft and having an abundance of attention. He didn't see that as a distraction from recognizing someone who could, be just as good or someone who he thought he can assist. So that's why he gets my number one. My number two. Now this is just from who I actually watch every day, y'all. So there's a lot of auditors that I watch, but I don't watch them every day. That's a difference. If I watch them all every day, then my order would be different. But since I only watch a few every day, this is the reason why my order from number one to the bottom is going to be what it is. My number two, honestly, is Long Island. Long Island is my number two because I do admire the fact that he actually follows through in some of the synopses that I gave and what I thought he was doing in terms of the 4D visuals. I thought he was doing that early on when he was filing the pro says. I thought it was more or less to show the entity and I thought it was to get a lawyer on board. Hey, look, I'm filing petitions. You ain't got to do this. Now, will you represent me? Oh, you know what? 20,000, I represent you. Fine, let's do it. I thought he was approaching it as a chess move, uh, and I like his direct, punctual assertion of the law. And it's real good. Uh, Number three, it changed, man. It used to be Amigassi Press. I used to like him a lot. I still like him, but now he's doing the whole private business auditing, right? So
Yeah.
that's different. It's nothing wrong with it. If you're trying to get money, it's way easier to have a private person violate you and get their insurance to pay you. To be honest, but I just feel like when this auditing world created itself 20 years ago from like two people, it was kind of like directed at government, right? Because the government was really encroaching on a bunch of our rights. And I feel like that's where it all stems from. So we're trying to keep it in those boundaries, but it's not like that no more. So for my number three, I would probably go ahead and give my number three to, I would give my number three to Bay Area. I'm gonna give it to Bay Area. No, and this is from who I watch every day. So I know you guys say, man, there's other people out there that's better. There might be, but since I don't watch them every day, I can't at this moment group them into this category of who do I think is the best. Because like Erie County, he real good. No, Erie County's real good. But and then if I had to just add him in the mix, I don't watch them every day. I like to give a well thought out, articulate conclusion, versus just watching a few videos. I try to really figure out the purpose, the nature, and the scope of this auditor in terms of is he for real? No, is he going to follow through? No, or is it just like, okay, I got views and I'm good now. Okay, if that's just what it is, then you're more of an entertainer, and I'm trying to take you serious. That's unfair to me.
Agreed.
Right. So,
Yeah.
right, and then I like KCA, man. I got to give it to him. That passive, sassy aggression of words that he do in a comical way, that really gets to them. I'm just trying to figure out where the ball is at. How many bricks is right here? That shit is crazy. Excuse me.
Yeah, when he gets, especially when he starts rolling, like even before he gets into his quote unquote survey questions, when he's talking about, where would I get the floor plan, or when he's talking about counting bricks, it's just the funniest part to me is the fact that he's asking these ridiculous questions to show the person how ridiculous they are for asking him not to record in public, but they never get it. They always start to say his questions are odd, but they don't think it's odd to ask somebody who is in public, minding their own business, telling them where they can point their camera at, which
That's
I just
ridiculous.
always find just like, wow, you guys don't see just how ironic it is that you're trying to ask him stuff and then be offended when he asks you a crazy question.
Right. But you got some legends like Jeff Gray. You know, to me he's a legend. You know,
Oh, for
uh,
sure.
some people they got their own ideas about him. And there's another author that from a long time ago, forget his name, but everybody knows his name. I just can't think of it right now. But
James Freeman.
James Freeman, yep, James Freeman. So I gotta separate their like some of these legends are in their own category. I can't even put them in the category of the active auditors. Even if they are as good as them, these are like the founders, right? So yeah. So for me, and like I say, I'm gonna clarify it again. This is based on who I watch every day. Now, let's say you ask me 9 months later, and I'm watching a whole group of different auditors every day. It's fluid. The list may change.
And that's a good thing about the auditing community is the fact that it is super inclusive, and at the same time, as other people are establishing their own styles and doing better, it forces people who have been in the game for a long time to continually evolve and make their style and their approach even better. Like I've noticed with TTA now, he does with he gives them the salted nuts. And to me, it's hilarious when he gives them out because he like leans on. He's like, "I want you to take these nuts." And I'm just like, every time he says it, I'm sitting there cracking up. And then when they actually realize what it means, I mean, it's just like it's double edged because they're gonna feel a certain way when they get it, and then when they find out later because people are calling in or sending emails about how they acted during the interaction, they're like, "Oh man," it's just like it's a double whammy. I love that new incorporation of that,
See, I
and I
want
mean
to
that's
touch on
one
that.
thing I love about the auditing community.
I'm gonna touch on that right there. See, that's what I mean. By him entertaining his fans, one of his fans gave him that idea. He listened to the fan and he ran with it, and it makes him 10 times better just by doing that. When you're an auditor and you come back down and don't forget where you started and you entertain those comments, you might get 10,000 comments if you got 100,000, 200,000 subscribers. When you come back down, you take the time to read those suggestions, you realize there's some valid suggestions in there.
Definitely. And one thing I've noticed for TTA and actually just about every auditor is I try to make sure I take the time to comment because I understand how that pushes the video and the algorithm. By the way, everybody like, share, and subscribe to this video as well. When I do make a comment for TTA, and TTA is huge, and I know that he's just like the amount of time that he has is super limited. But the actual fact that he takes the time to reply and respond to comments, I mean, that means a lot. It makes it feel like you're not just throwing words at a wall. And I mean, you yourself, the fact that you're actually even here is on a whole other level, but you also take the time to respond to comments. And I mean, even though the one thing I threw out there one day after I had a couple of whiskeys, I was talking about, what about calling it a flashpoint? The fact that you engage with it, that's how we began our conversation. And now we're here. So, I mean, you're 100% right and correct about that. And I'm looking forward to watching you blow up because I could say I've been there from just about the start out of the mud, you know?
Yeah, thank you, and I'm glad you bring that point up with the flashpoint. You know, for the world, just like I told you guys, TTA assisted with the name the Flash. You got, like you just said, he gave me the flashpoint. So in the last two videos, you will see where when somebody's lying, I do the time and rewind flashpoint. I got that from him.
Man, and trust me, that was just, and that wasn't even from me. That was coming from the ether again, having a couple of whiskeys. So yeah, I was just feeling a little good with watching the video, so to speak.
He didn't say
But I
feel
mean,
exactly like that, but the fact that I wasn't even thinking about the concept, so he get the credit.
trust me, brother, I appreciate it. But the person out there putting themselves in harm's way, you 100% deserve all of that credit. And that's actually something that I think about in terms of what your preparation is like for the day or a day that you are going to go out and audit a public building,
Hmm.
especially after seeing what happened to TTA and then also to KCA and countless other auditors. How do you prepare yourself that day when you know you're going to go out and audit a location?
The first thing I tell myself is I'm not all auditors, so I need to keep me in terms of priority, right? And what that means is I tell myself I'm not going to jail. No, there's a point in time where you can feel that they're about to violate you if you keep going. No, if you got them on camera violating you, that's enough. Okay, now is it enough to get $1 million? No, but it's enough to get to file. You can file a federal lawsuit simply for a preliminary injunction on a constitutional question. So you can file a lawsuit just for that purpose, so they can't do it again.
See that again. That's that 4D chess. And it's funny because since you know where it's going to go, you know how to prepare yourself and set it up. And the idea that you're going with the idea that I'm not going to go to jail today is a good way to look at it. I know a lot of times, even TTA mentions this in his videos where people are like, oh, take the arrest, do this, do that. And I think people just kind of forget the idea of this being your life and the things
Yeah.
that can happen once your camera gets turned off and someone has the power to turn off or on their body camera, or they have someone in that facility that, they pay or ask to have them do a favor for them while you're in there. And I think people forget about those things. So I agree. Don't
Right.
put yourself in harm's way. Get the information that's necessary, get them to commit the acts that open them up to litigation, and there's no need to put yourself in handcuffs and go away for what?
Right, exactly. And you know, my the way I look at it is like this: if you got somebody willing to violate your rights on camera, why in the heck are you gonna let them kidnap you? Because that's what it is at that point, is kidnapping.
Yeah, and that's like voluntarily doing it because you're pushing that aspect.
Right,
And I imagine in person, like as you mentioned before, like you can kind of feel like where this interaction is starting to go and whether or not you need to put on the gas or let off the gas. So, and that's something that I've noticed recently by just watching videos and paying more attention, where I can see you do that, TTA does that, auditing Erie County does that, Long Island Audit does that. Bay Area does that. All of the bigger auditors do those things because they understand it's not necessary to need to go forth and let somebody kidnap them, especially after they've violated your rights on camera already. So
right.
that's agreed.
And there's some indicators that show you their mindset before they actually encounter you. You know, the way they get out the car, with what type of intensity are they getting out that car? How does that vehicle park? Is it parking with an abrupt stop, or is it cruising up? Okay, that's cool. How does he get out the door? You know, and when he get out the car door, is he looking at you eye to eye, or is he looking off to you? And then when he get up to you, he looking at you in a dismissive manner? Or rewind that, even before that, does he get out the vehicle with his gloves already on? There's a lot of indicators now to where you gotta know, and that's why I tell everybody, man. People be like, man, y'all a joke. Listen, it's not a joke out here. People are. You seen what happened to Carolina? She got slammed on her face. It's not a joke. You'll
Yeah.
get hurt out there thinking it's a joke, and it's not a joke because these officers have immunity. You know, and if they heighten themselves and you follow that energy, you can find yourself really injured thinking it's a joke.
Speaking of which, you mentioned, I believe it's North Carolina and what happened with her. We've seen what's happened with the Tyrant Terminator. Who do you think, just out of all the auditors and auditing videos that you've had an opportunity to watch, who do you think was just violated the most vilely?
Oh, the TTA, because of what I know about that case, in terms of probably what I shouldn't know. No, there's gonna be a lot of stuff you guys are gonna get to see when that case is done. There's actual footage on that case. You know, in terms of the egregious violations and the abuse of authority and the aggravated assault that happened to him. Carolina, she did is don't get me wrong, she was abused and battered also. But they went a step further with him. You know, they took his phone, threw it in the gutter. You know, there was a lot more stuff that went with that. You know, they were done because where they threw the phone at was recoverable. You know, but I don't know if I can say that. But yeah. So, yeah. But man, out there, I think she was in Fort Worth when that happened, right? Fort Worth.
I believe so.
That's a different ballgame. Like I said, I'm from Texas, and Fort Worth is so bad in general. Like I knew the DA and the legislation up there would push for this reform that they did with the whole felony for getting in the way for. It was an attack on the auditors, really, but it's tough because Fort Worth is like in terms of the urban part of it's tough, man. It's a high crime area also, but she did some things that were wrong. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and fake the funk. Okay, she was impeding. Those who know, they know she was impeding. She got between the cars, and she gave a bad look for the others. Also, to be honest, not to take away from her injury. I'm not saying just because she did what she did, they got the right to do what they did to her. But what I'm saying, part of auditing is protecting yourself. You don't want to cross in that red zone where they got the right to act the way they act. Those officers were justified. And the reason why is because, I don't know if you guys seen the whole synopsis, but she really was impeding with the investigation. She was yelling about he trying to rape me. He trying to rape me. Like, you can't do that kind of, like, not, this is before the encounter happened. This is before her getting physical. She was trying to get the officer's attention, and she was saying a whole lot of stuff.
And I think that's the one thing that people forget. It's like, yes, we do have the Bill of Rights. Yes, we do have the Constitution of the United States, but we need to remain within those lines in order to make sure that we are safe. Because if we step just a teeny tiny hair out, heck, if we're even on the line itself, they're going to get away with committing some egregious acts. And I agree with you. I don't think that she deserved the repercussions of what occurred.
Right.
However, I do think that there were things that could have been done on her part that could have prevented that from actually occurring. So I
Even,
think that was a good thing for you to point out. And also, I think just being honest and straightforward about something that you have an opinion on, I don't think that's hating on somebody. I don't think that's taking a shot at somebody. I think that's just stating a fact.
right. And I know I'm gonna get some kickback. I know BZ's real cool with her. So, but at the end of the day, I'm just keeping it real in terms of factual. I'm not going to get out here and stand behind somebody who, I'm gonna stand behind you as a person. I feel for your injuries, but in terms of what caused them, there's a cause and effect. When you cross that line, or like you said, when you step on that line, to law enforcement, the line was crossed when you stepped on it.
Oh, for sure. They think you 10, 15 feet over the line just for even getting close to it.
Right, so, and that's what I mean when I say you gotta protect yourself. The first thing is first, protect yourself. It's protect yourself first. You can get the content later. Protect yourself. That's why I say I'm not going to take a. If you force it on me, that's different. I'm not going to take an arrest. And honestly, I try not to take a trespass. No, if I like the offense is there. You don't have to trespass me for me to know you violated my rights. The video is going to tell it all. Key things to remember, everybody. You don't have to file a lawsuit just for money. Constitutional questions. Was my rights violated? Draft up a petition. You can do a pro se. If you're not going for money and you just want to make a real easy federal lawsuit, do a constitutional question for a preliminary injunction. That'll get you a long way.
And I noticed you mentioned that in one of your videos. I believe we're having a conversation with Cordova, it might have been, where you had mentioned that you're not there to sue and get money. You can file an injunction, which in which case your rights will be upheld, and
Right.
then they will be liable for violating those rights. So I thought that was really good on your part, pointing that out. And they still went ahead and committed, and just stepped on your rights anyway, even though you're like, hey, this is what's going to happen. They still went ahead and did it anyway.
Even before him, before that building, I was at the WIC office. There's a video I have where the WIC office calls the police 2 times, and the second time the officers say, you know what, maybe I didn't make it clear. I'm gonna go back in there. And I told him that day. This might have been like probably 2 weeks before that video or a week before that video. Then I told him, I said, hey, look, man, I'm not here to sue nobody in terms of looking for a financial gain. Now, if it happens, if I get in a situation where I'm violated and injured, then that's different. Somebody got to be held accountable in a official and individual capacity. no,
Agreed.
but in terms of making a taxpayer suffer for this ignorant public official who is acting with a overreach of authority, no, we're not going to have that. We're going to get you removed. We're going to get you fired. There's only 2 ways to get them fired. You get that preliminary injunction, it'll make their bosses look at them crazy. It's an embarrassment. Or you hit their insurance companies because the insurance company is going to reach back out there to the entity and say, hey, we can't have this.
Yeah, and insurance companies ain't trying to pay out anybody, whether that be for the government or for the individual person at hand. So they'll definitely get stuff corrected
Right. But they're not going to get
100% agreed.
fired by touching the city's budget. So I want to make this clear. There's a city budget, but the city still has insurance. Now the city budget is the city's budget. You can tap into the city budget and that person will still be employed. But when you start affecting the insurance company will make them remove that employee.
See, and I know TTA had brought this up initially like early on in his videos, and it's good to see that multiple people are taking that on. One thing I actually wanted to ask you, because you've dropped some gems, like things that I never even saw as a viable option. If someone was interested in either becoming an auditor or they are a brand new auditor, do you have any words of advice that you would give them in terms of things that they can do, like you just mentioned?
Yeah, that's a layered question. I got to break that down. Uh,
Break it down, brother.
so the first thing is determine your purpose. Are you auditing because you care about your rights, or are you auditing for the content of entertainment? Those are two separate purposes. You auditing because you care about your rights, or are you auditing for the content of entertainment, right? So when you figure that out, then you can know what to expect in terms of if you're doing it for entertainment, just understand you're going to get violated a lot, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. Now, when you care about your right, and the reason I say that is because when these attorneys and these uh, officers and district attorneys and city managers, and when these people start looking through your videos and they see how ridiculous you are out there, don't expect them to try to take you serious or come save you, or have any compassion or concern for you neither. If you're doing it for entertainment, now when you're doing it for true passion or concern for your rights, they're gonna look. They look through your videos. Trust me, they look through our videos. And they're gonna say, okay, oh, damn, he's uploading good events also, not just bad. So it's not a one-sided narrative. He's uploading good encounters. Okay, he's being very respectful. I can't find any bad videos in terms of him just talking very bad to our officers. They're going to look at all that, and it's going to determine where you fit in when it's time to file these lawsuits and attack these insurance carriers. So the way you start early on is going to determine how much progress you make later on. That's what I'm trying to say. The way you start. So figure that out, because if you're playing now and then 2 years later you're trying to be serious, it's going to be tough. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would like to say is take care of yourself. Don't think it's a game. Don't think that you finna get handcuffs put on you and you're going to start saying, oh, okay, I'm finna file a lawsuit. Oh, okay. Listen, you guys seen me get violated 5 times in a row. You don't see me get out loud and obnoxious and say, oh, yeah, I got you now. I'm filing a lawsuit. Do you see that? No, you don't see
Not at
that.
all.
Right. So be well mannered and take care of yourself, because part of taking care of yourself is preserving the integrity of that moment. If you're not preserving the integrity of that moment, then that lawsuit can be lost due to your own integrity. So you got to preserve your integrity, take care of yourself, even when you're facing adversity in those moments. And the third thing I would say is you're going to have to be consistent. The best advice I can give you, if you got 0 subscribers, try to drop at least 17 videos a month, to be honest. And don't worry about the shorts. They're going to happen in time. You can always, when you get the subscribers up and you get you're in the algorithm, you're going to be able to use your old videos and turn them into shorts. You're going to find areas. You're going to catch up. That's what I'm saying. You're going to catch up on your shorts. So don't worry about that. Just try to be consistent, because if you're trying to get algorithm placement, you're going to need to be consistent with uploading. You're definitely going to need to like and comment to every comment. I do highly recommend that. Don't be like, that was dumb. Man, I like the troll comment. And I
I've
respond to
noticed
the
you go
troll.
back, you get in with them trolls. Like, I like that.
Right, and I do that of fairness. I don't do it just for the like. My approach is this: if I can acknowledge the supporter, then I can acknowledge the troll. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you or argue with you, but I will at least respond to your first comment. That's how I work. So,
And that's actually really smart, because a lot of people don't understand how algorithms work, especially that YouTube algorithm. And what you just described are things that are going to help push their content out to other viewers so that their channel can actually grow. Everything from the amount of videos and content they put up, and then also just having a little bit of an idea of what direction they want to go in. If it's entertainment, Let it be entertainment, but understand that you're putting yourself in a risky situation for entertainment. And then if it is for something serious, be fair with it. And I think that's your approach, and I think it's awesome.
Right. I'm serious when I no when I go to those libraries. I'm serious about viewing the library. So you would notice I'm like looking at artwork. I probably zoom in on the name and stuff because I understand that even though I'm auditing, there's a viewer who's like, "Oh, I want to see who's the name of that artist." There's somebody who's speaking like that, right? So I try to do more than just walk around to gain attention. I would actually look at whatever crafts and stuff that's present. There's a fourth thing I would advise people also. I was thinking of it when you were talking. The fourth thing I would say is, oh, the internet is undefeated. You're not going to please everybody. No, you might drop 30 minute videos and then somebody's going to complain. I came out dropping a whole unedited footage. When I first came out, videos were hour long because I was dropping them, unedited them. And then people were complaining. They're like, this is too long. But my idea was, hey, do you want to see the transparency on what happened, or you want me to edit out the filter? But that don't even work because even now, when I don't have those long videos, you got people who say, "Yeah, but how do I know that this didn't happen, or you didn't do this?" Or well, get the body cam. There's open records. You want the case number? I give it to you. And I don't just get. That's another thing, y'all. Let me back up. If you become an auditor, don't go wasting your money, okay? You can do a public records request to inspect. Go inspect the footage. And then if you want it, then buy it.
Man, that's another gem right there. I didn't know you could do that. I thought if you made the request, it was basically you're going to be purchasing said video. But the idea that you can inspect it before actually buying it, that in itself is going to save someone a ton of money versus just buying every piece of body cam footage that exists out there that involves them. That's a gem.
Right. When you do that public records request, make sure you attach the law with it that states that you can inspect it. Because you got to keep in mind, these people who are working at these counters, these public officials, these are regular people who wake up in the morning and probably put the same socks on from yesterday. They're nothing special. They're not like some law gurus that know your rights. You got to enforce your rights.
Agreed. And there's always the Prager principle in regards to there's going to be about 10% of the people who do the majority of the work, and everyone else just kind of falls in where they fall in.
Right?
And that exists in public offices, that exists in law enforcement. So I think you brought up a good point. Don't expect them to know. Just go in knowing what you need to know and basically standing firm on your rights. And I think that's a good way to advise someone.
Right.
Now, I know you've mentioned, a bunch of different auditors and that you actually have contact with them. Who are some of the auditors that you do have contact with and like speak to, whether it be daily, weekly, or monthly?
I talk to BZ Watchdog daily, my personal phone. I got his personal number. Uh, True story, actually. Before I started auditing, none of these people had TTA's number. By me getting in the auditing game, now BZ has TTA number. Now KCA has TTA number.
That's
Now
nice.
CTI has TTA number. Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool.
Right, so it's kind of crazy when you look at the irony of it. The guy who was just watching got in the game, and I've only been audited in like 30 days. So the one who wasn't auditing got in and made this connection available for four people who've been audited in terms of
Wait, so how long have you been auditing? One more time.
like 30 days.
Dang, you definitely are a pro. I thought you had another channel and that this was a new channel you started up because you just seem so good. Like for want of a better term, brother. Like
Yeah, no,
you were on it.
yeah, 30 days, and but like I said, I watched a lot, so I had a lot of thinking before I decided to get out here and actually stand up for what's right, And it doesn't have to be a spectacle. Like all these people who are sick and tired of auditors, you trolls, you public officials, and you members of the public. If you want to make the auditors go away, then just respect their rights. And as quick as they came, boom, it'll be gone.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing also, I know that I'm gonna get trolls on this video, and it's expected. I mean, if anyone wants to have an actual cordial conversation, that's something I'm 100% up for versus just like shooting a comment out there or making an ad hominem attack. If you want to discuss it, I'm 100% open to that. So I did want to throw that out there. Now, when it comes to just yourself and being a creator and like what was it that had you say, "You know what? Not only am I gonna, like, actively protest my rights, but I'm gonna upload it to YouTube, and I'm gonna try to make something of it." Like, what was the thing that kind of pushed you towards that direction?
It was the only way that your voice would get heard. When you dealing with your personal encounters, we gotta keep something in mind. I want everybody to kind of follow this synopsis right here. When it comes to the police officers, they got a sergeant, right? That sergeant may have a lieutenant, depending on what county you in. That lieutenant may have an assistant chief. That assistant chief may have a chief, and then for the chief, you got the mayor, right? Then the next step up for the mayor, you know who that is. These people are in bed together. If you think that you're just gonna go have a bad encounter and go file a complaint, and you think the internal affairs is going to get the job done, the internal affairs is literally an extension of the police department with a good name made to act as if they investigate them. They probably convict each other for internal crimes against each other more than crimes against the public. So if you got like a male officer who's hazing a female officer, they probably convict each other for internal things against each other more than against the people, to be honest. So when you really start to realize that your voice is not going to get heard at that entity, what tends to happen is when the masses of people get involved, that's when it becomes a what the heck is going on moment from the higher up. And then the higher ups come back down and say, wait, what's going on? Why do we got a video with 100,000 views of you doing something? And now I got the mayor's calling me because the governor is calling the mayor. Like, that's when it becomes a issue for these people, these public officials. So YouTube is the way to actually broadcast the behavior, unprofessionalism, and the conduct in terms of addressing your grievances on a public format.
Agreed. YouTube basically makes your group stronger because it gets bigger,
Right.
and it helps you win first on the court of public opinion, and then you can transition that to making sure your rights are upheld.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly what I always saw it as, and to hear that you believe the same thing, that's actually really great to hear. Versus someone who just wants to get paid on it because they're doing it for entertainment or for cloud or for something like that. Like I love the fact that you're just out there being active and it's just so you can affect change.
Right. In short term, it's like the poor people's news. And the reason I call it the poor people's news is because if we reach out to Fox or CNN or MSNBC, if you're not shot and dead, they're not probably going to take your story. But you drop your story on YouTube, man, you get 10,000 people who take your story.
Yeah, and it's immediate versus having to go through all the hoops of a major broadcast station. So 100% agreed.
Yeah.
Now to kind of lighten it up a little bit because we got a little serious there. In terms of like entertainment, just an auditor that you think is funny and you enjoy their style, but they're at the same time still serious. Who would you say is like a favorite of yours, like an auditor that you think is hilarious, just a very entertaining, funny auditor?
The fisherman.
Yeah,
The fisherman.
yeah,
Yeah, him. Yep. He's
yeah.
funny.
Hard fisherman for sure.
And I don't know if it's his camera angle or I don't. Ladies and gentlemen, do not crucify me because if he has a medical condition, I didn't know that. But I don't know if it's just camera angle or what. But he be looking funny too. He be talking big shit. And he be serious. And he just sounds so funny and he's so direct, punctual, and he's serious. But yeah, the fisherman.
It's funny that when you said what you said, you're like, I know people are going to crucify. I knew exactly where you were going with it. I honestly, I picked that up myself. I think he's hilarious. I love the fact that he's funny, entertaining, and he's standing on business.
Right.
And then when I step back and think about it, I'm like, man, he's there with some serious, firepower going
Serious.
throughout these conversations. I'm like, man,
Right.
yeah, I imagine he has to be that way because it lightens up the mood because that's a situation that goes from 0 to 100, I mean, almost immediately.
Right. I've seen him take his guns off of him and put him down, and he walked up to him to pick him up and like, hey, like that's some serious, that's some thick atmosphere you're in that moment.
Yeah, man, it's funny because he's able to maintain that composure.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, hey, I mean, hats off to him because he is one of the auditors I think is on the funnier side of things. Him and KCA, I think KCA is hilarious. I don't know if it's his delivery or what. It's the fact that his humor is just so dry. And then also I like I Am Free. I Am Free is one of the funniest guys in the world because of just how he just dismantles people, during a conversation. Like that dude is I don't know what kind of memory he has, but it's gotta be near photographic because that is just man, he is on it.
Yeah, but I think if KCA tried to do what the fisherman did, man, KCA, we probably won't have a KCA today.
I agree. I agree with you. You're like, "Man, that guy was a really good auditor."
Yeah, he
He
was
all
really good,
passed
man.
that.
Man, let me get my shirt, man. This represent KCA today. I'm not laughing for that, Casey. I'm just saying, if you know, you know.
Yeah, it's the RIP shirt, man. Like, everybody that grew up in the neighborhood, they know.
Right, right.
They know.
It is the truth though. If he tried that, especially where he's man, or if I did
Yeah, and a
everything
lot of
tried
that's
that,
open carry too, so yeah.
right.
Oh, and again, I definitely wanna be respectful of your time. I know I've already had you for a minute. I just got a couple more questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. In regards to an auditor that you see is underrated, is there anyone that you would say that people need to start checking out because they are underrated? And this is other than yourself, of course.
Yeah, Gorilla Audits.
That's a good one.
Gorilla Audits is underrated.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I would strongly agree.
Yeah.
That's a very good one.
I bet you like, man, he answered fast and it's precise. Yeah.
To
Gorilla.
me, it's just I can tell that you like what you do, and because you like what you do, you're a fan. So game recognized game, so to speak. So when you see someone like Gorilla Audits and how they actually go out there and how they're gorilla with their tactics and stay on it, it's hard not to respect that.
And Gorilla Audits is going to file that lawsuit also if he has to.
As a matter of fact, to this in the description of this video, I'm gonna include a link to the video in question that you're referencing that he is going to be moving forward on. So I'll definitely include that there for those who don't know. And I agree, Gorilla Audits is highly underrated and definitely
Right.
somebody that people should check out.
Like when like the fact that like even like kind of like as recent as last month, I think he had like like less than 30,000 subscribers.
Yeah, he does. I
Like
want to say maybe even below
14,000 or
25.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be more now, but like last month he was like, I was like, what? Gorilla Odyssey.
Yeah, it's surprising. Yeah, it's like super surprising for somebody who, especially is as active as he is. It's not like he's taking these long breaks or anything. No, he's pumping out content like you had mentioned, the 17 videos a month.
Right.
And I mean, he's established and he's still pumping out content.
Exactly. And he knows what he's talking about. He
Yeah.
knows the law.
Yeah, and that's one thing I love about his style is he's informed
Mhm.
and he's assured.
Right, right. He's just informed and assured. That's perfectly, brilliantly said. I honestly, I'm gonna, I'm gonna rearrange my order, man. Cause I don't even know why I left Gorilla Artists out. So TTA my number one, Long Island my number two, Gorilla Artists my number three.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Like I can definitely see that.
yeah. And then,
And he's been at it for a little while too. Now that I think about it, he's been auditing for a minute.
right, but look at the subs. I don't know what's going on because Gorilla, like, man, look, I, put it this way: there's some auditors, they're sitting at some great subs, and I'm like, man, how is Gorilla Audits not sitting equivalent or greater?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of auditors, like I look at their sub count, but then I look at how many comments they have in their video or how many likes that they get, and I'm wondering if they're buying subs or they're botting it. Because someone like Gorilla Audits, like his sub count compared to how much interaction he gets on his channel, that makes a lot of sense. It makes it seem like it's a genuine number because of how active his community is.
Right. Matter of fact, does what's the sub comparison from him to Audit Everything?
Jeez, I don't know offhand, but I want to say Audit Everything is got a lower sub count. I want to say considerably lower.
So, if,
Like
what do you think Audit Everything sub count is?
I want to say I think it's below 20, like around 15, 17,000.
That's about right. And what do you think Gorilla Audits is?
Jeez. I know you had just mentioned it was 30, but I think it's like the last time I checked it was like 23 or 25,
That's
like
more
around
right.
there.
That I was giving him extra for the camera. You're about right.
Yeah, and that's offhand, but the fact that his count is so low compared to the quality of the content he puts out, it just means that he's due to have like a big explosion. Kind of like what happened to TTA. I mean, I remember when TTA was at 5,000, subscribers, and then you blinked and he was at 15, then you blink again and he was like, 50. So I mean, I think that's what's going to happen for Gorilla Audits because he's putting out content that's good.
Yeah,
People are going to actually end up having to get to catch on to it.
exactly. And I think when I started watching Gorilla, he was at 12,000.
Man, yeah, and I'm want to say he's been doing this for at least 2 years, maybe now.
That's crazy because you got like look at and this is no negativity. But I'm just using this in comparison. BZ, just calm down. BZ Watchdog. When you look at the comparison in numbers, I think BZ got like what 14,000, and like, but if you look at the quality of content in terms of auditing, you'd be like, what the heck? What are we weighing here?
And I think it's just people who are better at writing the algorithm or just like whatever it is, the timing of it.
Uh-huh.
Because BZ, the way he approaches it, and like I've noticed like his the taglines that he has in his video and the words that he makes sure that he says, I could see how his videos get picked up in the algorithm more. And I've noticed because like I don't have any real social media platforms that I engage on, but my wife has a TikTok and she comes across his videos on TikTok, whether they're posted by him or by other people. So I'm thinking maybe that's what also helps drives his numbers up.
Yeah, definitely so, and I can see that. No, that it doesn't matter how you put together your thumbnails and your the title of your video. That matters a lot. But yeah, so that's to the original question, Gorilla Audits.
Yeah, and I'd probably put him in my Mount Rushmore as well. I think that's a good one. It's funny because he's one of those sleepers that you can forget about. So underrated, like the definition of it, I'd have to agree. With you, in regards to the audits you've done, like I had no idea you'd only been at this for such a short amount of time. But for you, what do you think is the most memorable audit that you've done so far?
Memorable for me would probably be that officer. He was like, "Hey, Flash, you want some water?" And he got back in his cruiser, drove to I think it was CVS, bought me some water, and brought it back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good look on his part. That wasn't Hidalgo, was it? Or was that Hidalgo?
Well, everywhere I audit is Hidalgo County. Hidalgo County
Ah,
is big, so there's a bunch of cities within Hidalgo County. But
that makes sense then.
but so in terms of memorable because of the police involvement, it'd be that one. But in terms of memorable for like ridiculousness, it'd be this 5 visit audit. This is ridiculous. It is memorable because Not only is it ridiculous for how well they've violated me, it's also ridiculous because how did you violate me like this and I I never get arrested, cited, neither trespass. Even when they tried to ban me, the officer like I gotta look this up because I gotta check the legality of this.
Yeah, you would figure they're like that student that gets to take the test 5 times. They have the answers in front of them, but somehow they still fail
Yeah.
because I mean, they have to have had somebody with at least a quarter of sense say, "We probably should just do what he's asking and he'll leave us alone," versus digging the hole deeper every time that you end up going in there.
I'm gonna tell you why they did it. This South Texas area is corrupt with the most corrupt public officials on earth, probably next to Mississippi. And the reason why I say this is because if you look at the last video, the lady at the window on the very last video for that encounter, she's actually from regional. She had her name is Emily. Emily I can't pronounce that last name, but her name is Emily. She's actually from regional, so they were able to conduct this type of behavior because they got their bosses above them at regional that's assisting the behavior.
Dang. When they talk about it rolling downhill, I mean,
Yeah,
I had no idea that that was somebody from regional. It's like, how did they even get it wrong? That's like the teacher failing the test that they wrote.
crazy. They sent somebody
Man,
from regional after my complaint. So after the phone call complaint that I recorded, they then send George to pretend like he's assisting me. And then when I tell George, yeah, I'll be back up there today to file my FOIA, my Freedom of Information, well, my Public Records Act. Um, he says, okay, you guys heard it. It's on YouTube. No, he's like, okay. He never tells me, hey, don't come because you're banned. Or, hey, when you come, I got to give you some paper. Instead, they take my personal information from my internal complaint because they never had my name prior to that complaint. So they forwarded my personal information to the entity, to the manager that I'm complaining about, which is Ruby. They forwarded to her, and she's the very person I'm complaining about. And then she calls her friend, which is Emily, who they're Facebook friends together from regional. She calls Emily, and Emily drafts her up a ban notice. This is all done in collusion.
dang. And the sad part is, it's not even slick. I mean,
Not
it's
even
like they didn't even take the
slick.
time to do
Right.
it right.
Right.
Man,
Not even slick.
and the funny, like, there's so much I want to get into with that one, but I won't because I'll let you do what you got to do with it
Then
first.
well, let's
And if
hey,
we ever get a
listen.
chance to connect
Drop the
again, I would
questions.
like the behind the scenes of that.
Drop the questions. If I
Oh,
can
you were
answer them,
saying?
I answer them.
So, in regards to them having somebody from regional get involved and like draft up this erroneous letter that says you're banned basically from a public facility
Crazy.
without having any kind of rule of law or force behind it. When you saw that, and I know we mentioned earlier about not wanting to laugh, but how were you able to hold your composure and not just like legitimately just like laugh in their face about how ridiculous this was?
Well, they kind of foiled their hands. So when I walk in the building, the last visit, everybody go look at the last visit. I walk in the building, a brand new floor receptionist who's never seen me is not even entertaining me. So I'm already knowing there must be some kind of premeditated, pre-planned collusion going on because I've never seen her. And I walk up to her, I say, "Hey, I'm here to do a public records request." She just turns her head and she never says nothing. So now I'm feeling eerie. I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm kind of able to brace for impact, in terms of what's going on and how I keep my composure. So that's the first indicator. The second indicator is if you notice, I look up to the security, Cordova, he's at the window. I said, hey man, you called the police already? I just got here because I heard him, you know. And then I look to my left and there's a lady at window 3, which is Emily. For the first time ever of all visits, someone at the window saying, can I help you? And so now it's even more eerie. I'm like, hold on. Okay, so I go over there, right? And then she leads on her introduction by saying that I spoke to George. So you're asking me, can you help me? But you already know who I am, and I never even met you before. So now I'm already aware that there's a big old plot here. That's how I was able to keep my composure.
Yeah, that's that 4D chess again. The one thing I found interesting during the conversation you had with George is not only did he mention anything that was going to be handed to you or given to you, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe he mentioned, when I see you on the camera, when I see you come in, I'll come out and say hi and introduce myself. And I noticed that he was nowhere to be seen or found when you actually made that fifth visit and got the or not didn't even get it, but they were trying to give you the ban notice from the location. Over the next year, where do you see the channel going and what would you like it to become?
Informational resource channel. So written channel itself, all auditors should be informational resource channels because it's a resource for training, in growth, in development, not only for the public officials, but for the members of the public as well. So when you go to these channels, for my channel specifically, I would like for it in the future to be an informational resource channel, not just in auditors, because there's more to the idea that we're just auditing. We're training also. We're training employees to get back to the fundamental baseline of professionalism, right? We're training police officers to get back to being community public relations officers. And we're training individuals as members of the public to understand their rights. So this is an information resource channel.
Honestly, I think that's something that you've already been successful on because the way that you conduct yourself and you go about these audits, not only is it going to be informational in terms of knowing our rights, it's also just informational in terms of how to treat the public when dealing with the public from the perspective of a public employee. So, I mean, I'm really grateful for the fact that you already do that. And I look forward to watching your channel grow so that you can just have more effect on the change that you're going to present because in terms of being a resource, police, law enforcement agencies, public entities as well, you're a great resource tool for them to understand what they can and can't do.
Right, right. No, but the one thing I would want to say is to add to the ending of the whole uh, criteria pertaining to auditors. Ladies and gentlemen, you will find an auditor, even your best auditor, at some point in time, uh, for lack of better terms, step outside of their character, in a sense to where you will be like, oh wow, okay, he actually insulted that person. Don't hold them to it because like it's such a harsh way. Because let me tell you why. At the end of the day, these are constitutional enthusiasts, for a better term. These are constitutional enthusiasts who are standing up for their rights and your rights, which is our rights. And what do you expect? You expect them to be violated and to not be able to express, how they feel with a fundamental concept of words, So some people are like, man, you call him a fat ass clown. Yeah, but prior to that, I didn't say none of that, right? I was just trying to attempt to deliver my purpose. He wasn't hearing it, so he was a clown. And my observation of his structure was fat. So a lot of people was like, man, he was rude, man, but no, I wasn't. I delivered the observation that was presented to me. He was a clown, and he was fat, and he was acting like an ass, right? It'd be no different than somebody saying, man, Flash, you have a huge head. Okay, I have a huge
Oh,
head.
but anybody that's willing to take the time to be able to laugh at themselves in some a situation like that, I agree. Also, the observation you made, I don't think anybody would call you a liar. So, I mean, what you said about the young man, I mean, hey man, sometimes if the shoe fits, you got to get a matching shirt. So I mean, it just kind of is what it is on that.
I don't get feedback or critique. I had somebody was like, yeah, but I have kids that, get bullied and This is not a bully. This is a factual observation.
Agreed.
The bully and the factual observation is two different things.
Yeah, those are very far from each other at the same time. And also, it's not like you just walked in and insulted the guy. He created multiple egregious acts that put you in a situation to where you then were like, look, man, if you're going to strike out, I'm going to strike back. I'm not just going to sit here and take it. So, I mean, there's
Right.
also that to keep in mind.
In most ladies and gentlemen, that's not who we are. Constitutional duty. So when I delivered my speech, my speech did not stop his right. I just gave a statement of observation. So who is rude? The one who's encroaching on my right, or a statement of observation?
And, people don't take the time to look at it in that way, but I would agree because even though you made a comment, at no point did you violate his rights. So, I mean, there's also that.
Right. Put him on the students in the rest for the first day kindergarten.
I mean, and then now there's also that on top of everything else. So, I mean, Flash, 1,000,000%, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'd love to have you on again, maybe even get like a panel style debate. If I have the opportunity of getting some of the people that you've actually interacted with on the other end of it, so that maybe now outside of the situation, they can have a conversation with you and kind of see the errors that they made and where they can make
Mhm.
changes in the future. I think the whole goal is to educate. And if people are just going to sit there and stick their head in the sand, not much is going to be able to get accomplished. So, I mean, I just appreciate your time, brother.
I appreciate the time you gave me, brother. Real quick on that, to what you just stated. As simple as damage control is, it would be that simple. So, like, let's say they see this video and they hear what you just said. I would like to get to the other side. Them sitting down on this panel of debate and giving shared perspective, in the minute that they're wrong, could possibly diffuse everything.
Yeah.
but but do I think they would do that? No, because one thing I learned in the public private sector in terms of government, it's crazy because it's public private, don't make sense to it. But one thing I learned in this government sector is the idea to confess to them is more damage.
Ah. The crazy part is they'd rather pay out, whether it be through the insurance or through litigation versus just saying, you know what, I'm wrong. We'll try to correct this moving forward. Man, that is, I guess it's because it's not their money. When it's not their money, maybe it's a little bit easier to take this staunch defensive stand that's just saying, I'm not going to move.
But that's how ridiculous their perspective is. I'm suing you in your official and individual capacity. It will be some of your money.
Personally, I mean, sometimes people don't learn until they touch the pot and realize that it's hot. So, I mean, let them get scorched if that's the way it's got to be.
Right. But yeah, but before we go, I gotta get the outro for the video.
Oh, for sure. I mean, hey, I was actually gonna throw it in there too, so please do it. All by all means.
As I always say, Flash family, I don't do this for you. I don't do this for me. I do this for us. And together, we are a family. Bring it back and take it back our right. With that being said, Flash Audits, I'm out.
All right, brother.